Good morning, everybody. Today's daf, I believe, is daf Nun Tes, and we're towards the bottom of Nun Tes on the base. We're up to Zu Mishnah Rishona. So yesterday, the first half of the daf was continuing on with the Agat Gemara talking about the amount of people that were killed. We had the story, terrible story of how they used to use the Yiddish Kindlech to place by their bed so that they should have the vision of the beautiful Yiddish Kindlech b'shas their tashmish. So that was referred to in the Torah Gam Kol Choli B'Chol Maka Asher Leikosav B'Sefer HaTorah Zois. Then we had the Gemara of 400 times 400 times 400, meaning there were 400 but the Midrashim and Beitar that had 400 Melamdin each, that each taught 400 Tanoikis, which would work out to 64 million. Again, we were discussing yesterday whether or not that Guzma or not. Then we had the Gemara about the child, Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha. When he was a child, he was a very, very good-looking person, and Rabbi Shua ben Chananya heard that he was in jail in Rome. And when he saw what a good child this was, because the child understood with clarity why we have tzaras, he said, "This is someone who's also l'gdula," and he insisted on getting him redeemed, getting him ransomed. Then we had a story about Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha's children, who were also beautiful, and there was a sister and a brother who were each owned by respective owners, and they figured, let's get them together, and then we can share their offspring. But when they realized who they were, because they didn't touch each other, and they were put together at night, when they realized in the morning that they were siblings, they cried at each other to death. Then we had the story of Rahman, the children of, I'm getting mixed up with the one before, with the story of Tzafnas Bas Peniel, who rolled herself in the earth after they undressed her completely to show her as a slave in the slave market to a potential buyer, and she cried to Kadosh Baruch Hu, even if you're not going to have rachmanas on us, but have rachmanas on your own covet, because Kavayachal, we're part of your covet. Then we learned about the horrible con artist who was able to con his Rebbe, his teacher, his carpentry teacher, into stealing his wife and getting all of his nechasim. And then we got back to the lumdus of Gittin, and we learned about Sekrikun. So we learned that even though normally, if you first approach the Sekrikun to buy it, and then you approach the original owner, even though normally that wouldn't be a good mechira, because the original owner is only selling it because they're afraid to antagonize the Sekrikun, or in a similar case, if you bought a property from the husband and then you asked the wife if you could buy it from her, that only works if they said Lei Chazek Ukni. We say they didn't really mean it. But if they actually wrote out a shtar, then we say that they really meant it. And the shaila was if achrayis ta'asayf or not. If they wrote a shtar without achrayis, is that considered a good shtar? According to Rav, it is. According to Shmuel, there's no achrayis. No, 1 second. Okay, Gabbai. So that was the first shiloh we had, the Gabbai, the Sekrikun. Then we had other shilohs about the Sekrikun. Then we had the halacha of whether or not you taina for the lekech. So if someone buys it from a Sekrikun, even if he has it for a considerable amount of time, and then the original owner comes to say it's mine, unless he tainas, I bought it from you, he can't just say, I'm here for 3 years, and therefore I get to keep it. He has to say, b'beriris, that he bought it from me. But what if the person who bought it from the Sekrikun died? Or the person who, what if the person who bought it from the Sekrikun died, or the person who bought it from the Sekrikun sold it to a third party? They can't time it, b'beriris, that our father or the person that we bought it from actually bought it from you. So if they're approached by the original owner saying that it's mine, they're tainin on lay, we taina on behalf of the children, thank you very much, or we taina on behalf of the lekeach that the person they bought it from, or the person they actually is from, would have bought it from them, and therefore they get to keep it, provided that they already had it for 3 years. Then we had the halacha of bomach mosoy v'machas on pirish. Where do we say that the original owner is really nicha to give the property away? That's when he was threatened with his life. If he was threatened with his life, he's nicha to give it away, and therefore it's considered a full sale. When you buy from the Sakriko, you can keep it. However, what if it was only seized because of a choiv that the person owed, or if it was just seized just to steal it? There, he doesn't really mean to give it over. And therefore, no matter what, if you buy something from a guy who took it to choivai, or if you took it you bought it from a guy who seized the property, no matter what, forever, the original owner can come and take it away from you. However, we learned another chiddush that even when you buy it from a Sakrikon, that the Gemara says you can keep it. That's what the Mishnah says you can keep it, is only if the Sakrikon had already held on to it for 12 months. Okay. Then we had the halacha of, even though there's a rule that by Ampirish, it's not a good mechira, and no matter what, if you buy from an Ampirish, the original owner can always take it back from you. That rule does not apply in Bavel, because in Bavel they had a system of law and order, and in fact the original owner could have taken the grabber to court, and the Gemara refers to that as beidoyar, because you petition a court in writing with a written petition, and since he didn't do that, a year went by and he didn't take any action, it shows his nicha with the sale. Then we had the story of Gid. I don't know, in the we call it the Beit Doyar. I'm not sure. I don't have an R scroll. If I do it as an R scroll, is it Beit Doyar or is it Beit Davar over here? I see Victor's looking it up. About the mute still, okay? So Gidel.
Davar.
Davar. Oh, you're right. Al Pishnai Maidim Yukum Davar. Victor says it and Chaim says it. Two items that I would never put together. So on their own. Victor, you're in good company. You're the same company as Chaim Fir. Al Pishnai Maidim Yukum Davar. Okay. Gidel Bar Ra'iloi. Gidel Rabeloi. He had an interesting situation. We learned that tax, the way it worked is neighborhoods were taxed. So let's say if you live in the M6A 1P6 area code, the king says there's $1 million tax due every year. Who pays? There's multiple houses, multiple properties in this postal code, and they have to work out amongst each other how much each one would pay. What happened if there was one person who wasn't around? He wasn't there. One of the owners disappeared. So now the rest of the people in that postal code are going to be forced to kick in that money. So you know what they did? They went and sold the property temporarily to somebody who was willing to pay. So they said, whoever is willing to pay the tax for this year, he can have the payers of the property. So they picked who? Gidler Bar Riloi. And it turns out that instead of paying for 1 year, he figured he's going to prepay taxes for 3 years. So he basically was saving the Bnei Baga money. And what happened was after a year, the owner came back and says, thank you very much, sir. I'll take my land back. I'll pay my taxes. But he said, so he told the Bnei Baga, I already laid up 3 years. I want my 2 years back. They didn't want to give it to him. So there was a tzad. At first, there was a havamina that they were going to seize the property of the people of the Bnei Baga in order to pay back Gidel Bar Eloi the extra 2 years of taxes that he paid. But what happened was Rabbi Beshua protested, because that's really similar to a case of Sukrikoi, where he redeemed the property from a goy, and now you're letting him keep it. When who says you're allowed to do that? Ella, and it's not really Sukrikoi over here. This is not called a Sukrikoi. This is really a case where no one was threatened with their lives. So how can you do that? And therefore, Rabbi Beshua said it's too bad for Gidel Eloi. He took a very big risk because he put money in a place where it was surely or likely to be lost. If you take money and you put it on the horn of a tzvi, you're likely never to find it again. What's it mean? So the law is too bad for him. He shouldn't have paid it. So I don't know. Maybe could he was a gear. Gidel bar Eloi. It's the first letter of his first name is Gimel, and his father's name is Reish. It could be a ger. I mean, who else pays taxes in advance? Not a year in advance. Zu Mishnah Rishonim. So then halacha l'maisa when it comes to sekrikon, this was the Mishnah Rishonim. Bezin shalacharein, our Mishnah says, Amru halakech b'nas sekrikon noisin l'baylam revia. What you do is you buy from a sekrikon, and we learned that sekrikon has property, they got to unload it quickly, they want their cash, so they will give you a 25% discount. So if a zoivite, yes, you get to keep the property, but you shouldn't benefit because Yena Yid was threatened. So if a zoivite, pay full price for the property, whatever you didn't pay the sekrikon, give that money to the original owner. So now the question is going to be is how much does the sekrikon reduce the price? So it's a revia, but there's different ways to patach revia. For instance, let's say I paid $100, right? So do they give me an extra $25 worth of property? Is that the 25% discount? In other words, 25% of the money that I paid, they give me extra in property. So it's at $25. But there's another way to look at it. Is the property that they give me, 25% of that is a gift. So for instance, if I pay $100, they gave me $133.33 worth of property. So they gave me property that's worth 25% of the total property that I have is free. So the nafkamina would be is are they giving me 25% or are they giving me 33%, 33.3%? So Zok Gemara, we have a machlokes as follows: Omarav, Revia Bakarka, a quarter of the karka that's there, or is it a Revia Bakarka, meaning after they give me the product, after they give me the karka, 25% of that property is bonus, or Revia B'mois? Oh no, they look at my money. I gave $100, so they're going to give me $125 worth of property. So basically, the question is it 25 or is it 33 and a third? Exactly. So Rav holds it's the lesser amount. It's only $25. Which is actually a third of the total, which would be 33 and a third. What's a machlokes? It's a machlokes as to how low we can get purchasing of the property. It's all a machlokes as to how much, as far as my dollar value, are they giving me a discount? Is it a $25 discount or is it a $33.3 discount? We can have a brayso that's pretty much going to say exactly like Rav. The bottom get to decide what they want. They get to decide if they want cash or if they want karka, which is interesting. Most of the times when you owe somebody money, you always give cash. If you don't have money, you give karka. Here, the Bailam have the right to decide what they want. That's if they can't afford to buy the whole thing back. If they can buy the whole thing back, they get to buy their whole property back. Correct. Rabbi Hoshev Bezdin v'nimnu. Here's the punchline. Rabbi Hoshev Bezdin v'nimnu shem shasa b'fnei sekrikon shnei maser chaydesh. Then the original owner loses his first rights to it, and kolakoidem likach zacha aval. And here's the punchline: noisein lebailem revia bekarka or revia b'mois. I'm sorry. The original Bible, that's correct. So you have a right that it's a quarter. Even Shmuel agrees to the word revia. The Mishnah says revia. It just means a quarter of the property after you receive it. Zok to Gemara, Amarav. After I have the property, I give a quarter of the property back, which is 1/3, according to Shmuel. Zok to Gemara. Rav said, if we just quoted Rebbe as saying that in the days of Rebbe, Hoshev Bezdin v'nimnu, they did a vote of Bezdin. So Rav said, I was there, I was part of that Bezdin. Ana havoi b'minyan debei Rebbe. I was in that group and I voted. Uminoi didi manu b'reisha, and they asked my opinion first. Why? Mimenu shalu tchila b'shura in the order. Kishani yoshin madaiti noita. They asked me my opinion first. Rav was not the most harsh of a person there. He was from the young Dayanim. Rashi says another He was the youngest. The youngest. I'm sorry? That's right. But not dinim ominous v'taharis v'tumos maschilin min agodol. It's only about dinim nefashos maschilin min atzad, and this is dinim ominous. Amar Rabba Bereder Rabba B'Tem Rav Hillel Bereder Valis Shani Min Yon Devei Rebbe the Chulu Min Yonayu Min Atzad Havu Muschilam. They had everything Torah they asked from the smallest, and like we learned yesterday, if you ask the Av Bezin first, then nobody's going to want to offer a dissenting opinion. So therefore, you ask the lightest, the lowest level first, and then you build your way up. So, yeah, that's right. So it's interesting. We learned that we learned at the end of Soita loy tema anova the ikano. That's what Rebbe said. Rebbe was the biggest of them all, right? So there's different shatim in where that comes from. Oh, but I'm going to hold that off for a second because we're going to soon learn about the godless of Rebbe. V'amar Rabba Bereder Rabba B'Tem Rebbe Hillel Bereder Rabbe Valis. Mi Moshe Bad Rebbe loy matinu Torah gdula b'mokam echad. From the time of Moshe Rabbeinu till the time of Rebbe, there was never a time where there was Torah u'gedula b'makam echad. Let's see what gedula means. B'makam echad, Rashi. She'teirason u'gedulason shal Yisrael b'makam echad. She'en b'Yisrael gadol b'Torah u'ba'osher k'moisa. So Rashi clearly says gedula means ashiras. Gedula means ashiras because when we learn the next list of people who had that, I didn't necessarily know that they're ashirim, and Rashi doesn't necessarily stress that they were ashirim. But by Rebbe and by Moshe Rabbeinu, they were the kings of Torah of their generations, and they were uber wealthy as well. And you don't find anybody in between them that had that level. Correct? Maloi, Hahava Yeshua. Yeshua was also very, very wealthy, and the head of Klal Yisrael. I don't know how we know that Yeshua was very wealthy. But Hava Elazar. In Yeshua's days, Elazar was around, and Elazar was also very, very wealthy. He also had Torah and Gedula. So therefore, because it tells you we didn't have Torah Gedula b'makam echad. Yeshua wasn't the Kohen Gadol. Well, maybe a Elazar. Maybe a Elazar. Could be by the Melech also. So that's why I raised it. Rashi says Oisher, but we're soon going to see a lot of these cases were not known to be wealthy, but it could be out authority. And Yeshua, Pashtus, he wasn't wealthy. I mean, we don't know for a fact that he was wealthy. The word doesn't bring a right that he was wealthy, but it was authority. Right, he was the king, but he was also the Poisikador. Okay, that's what I was trying to bring out. He's talking about Hava Elazar. But what about Elazar? In his days, he was Yochid Lachashin to Yeshua. After Yeshua died, he was king. So Hava Pinchas. So Achar Elazar Torah Gedula She'Kohen Gadol Acharabim. Back to Gemara about Hava Pinchas. It's Torah Gedula. Each of these people would have had both. It's Torah Gedula b'makam echad. Simultaneously, that's right. Maybe it means on both. No, it means on both. It means on both. Yeah, because you might have had someone who was only a Talmud Chacham, only authority, but you didn't have someone who was both. No, you didn't have someone who was both. Think about Hava Pinchas, Hava Zakanim, Hava Shaul. What about King Shaul? So to Gemara, Hava Shmuel. Shmuel was there at the time. So it says Shaul was the Gadol b'Torah. Rashi El Shalei Limud Lachem. He didn't teach others. Break the Gemara about Kinach Nafshe. Shmuel died before Shaul died. After Shmuel died, Shaul was the king. That's more true. But we're talking about somebody who, from the moment he became a Gadol b'Torah and a Gadol b'Gedula, there was no one else at all. So Kulu Shnei Kamina. Yeah, sure, there was a time in Shaul's life where he was the king of both, but there was a time where he wasn't. Break the more about Hava David. So Hava Ira. There was Ira who also was Gadol b'Torah Hava. The Darminan Dava Masnu L'Rabbanan Al Gabi Karim V'Ksosas. The Gadol b'Torah, but he was also very wealthy. He had pillows, right? So this is talking about wealth. Correct. Gemara to have an ear here. Iva Nachnamshe didn't David outlive him? So the Maharsha asks, didn't we just say this teretz? How come the Gemara didn't remember it? The teretz is that Shaul lived Shaul didn't live a very long time after Shmuel. So Meil says Kulushne, but David lived a much longer time after Iri. So maybe that would be considered it. So it's still not enough. Kulushne beina. I'm sorry. Could be. Could be. Have a Shleima. The Gemara have a Shimi ben Gera. Frank Gemara, Shimi ben Gera didn't last long at all. Well, Kotli killed him. But the Gemara still Kulish Shnei Kaminon. Unless every moment of his career he was the biggest in Torah Gedula, we're not counting it. Frank Gemara have a Chizkiah. There's King Chizkiah. The Gemara have a Shavna. Frank Gemara Iktil. The Gemara Kulish Shnei Kaminon. To have a Ezra. The Gemara yes, but have a Nechemi ben Chagalia, who's also Torah Gedula b'Makarech. Omar Bachaber the Rabba, Af ani Omer, Mimosh Rebbe Adrab Ashi, Leimatinu, Torah Gdula b'Makam Echad. Rabashi was very wealthy, and he was also a titan in Torah. V'ha Huna bar Nasan was huge. Zok to Gemara, shiny Huna bar Nasan, the Mekiv have a Kayif Leila Rabashi. He was totally mevatel himself to Rabashi, so we don't say that he was another person with Torah Gdula. Since he was so mevatel himself to Rabashi, we say that Rabashi himself was the only one who had Torah Gdula. So going back to Rebbe, who had Torah Gdula, it says like Tema Rebbe Dikana. The Gemara tells us that Rebbe was mechabed Ashir. Now Rebbe was a great anav. Like Tema Anava the Ikana, right? Rebbe was a great anav. He had Torah and Gedula. It's brought down, like I said a moment ago, that Rebbe was very mechabed Ashir. You know why Rebbe was mechabed Ashir? Because he wanted people to be mechabed him for his wealth. But chas v'sholem, don't be mechabed me for my Torah. So Rebbe so much didn't want to take any benefit from the Torah, he chas v'sholem didn't want to take benefit from his Torah. So he was more happy that people should be mechabed him because of his wealth, so that chas v'sholem people shouldn't be mechabed him for their Torah, right? There's a lot of people who are wealthy and they want people to be mechabed them because of their Torah. But Rebbe is exactly the opposite. Rebbe B'davka didn't want to get covered for his Torah. I hear it. Zok to more about you. Cheresh, we know a cheresh midiraisa cannot make kinyan. Nevertheless, roimeis v'nirmas. If he makes remazim hand language and he makes symbols, that would be a good kinyan. So Rashi says, if he makes remiza, Rashi says it's with his hands or with his head, that's a good indication of what he wants, and it will be a good kinyan. Yeah. Uben b'seir aimer koifetz v'nikbats. There's a machlokes for shonim if this is a better expression or a worse expression. We're going to go with Rashi that it's a worse expression. So Rashi the kimus asayim shenemer kav tzapiyah ve'enoi simin nikar karamiza. It's not a clear of an expression of what someone's thinking as ramiza is. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's making simanim with his mouth. Could be it's lip syncing. Yeah, could be. So Gemara, but so the question is, does that mean that karka is moida that you need raimis v'nirmas or not? So the Gemara is going to probe that. Hapautos. Putos is at a certain age, which the Gemara is going to discuss what age that is, but it means a cotton who's getting near to maturity. Mekhan mekach umemkar and memkar again b'metalton. Amar Nachman, machlokes b'metalton. Are you saying that Ben Beseira only argues by metalton that koifes v'nikpat works? Avol Gittin. But when it comes to Gittin, Divrei Akol b'remiza, everybody holds b'remiza, and Rashi says, how could a cheresh give a get? The Torah says we're talking about a cheresh who married b'remiza. A cheresh could do kedushin d'Rabbanan, and the only shaila is whether or not he can do a get on that kedushin. But if he was completely healthy when he did a kedushin, and then he became a cheresh, of course that get would not work. Okay? Zog to Gemara. Or do you say, so Amar Abnachman, machlokes b'metalton, avol Gittin divrei Akol b'remiza. Zog Gemara pshita b'metalton. Didn't Ben Beseira tell you he only holds kvitza works by metalton? Zog Gemara, no. Mao the tema af metalton. Maybe what Ben Beseira meant, of course, by Gittin it would work. I mean to say it works even by metalton. Kamash malam. Why would you think that metalton wouldn't work and it would work for Gittin? Zok Gemara, Rashi says, the second wide line, the loitema Gittin who the kili. Maybe Gittin is easier. Mishum de bekvitza kanas bekvitza yaitzi. Ava metalton should not loy be a rusha loy. Mishum machit na metalton. So, I'm sorry. So right. So metalton got to be rusha, which is a real kinyan. Maybe it wouldn't work there. Kamash works as well over there too. Zoklamar ikadami. There was another version of how this went down. Amar Nachman b'machloikis kim machloikis b'metalton kach machloikis b'gittin. I v'anam b'metalton tam. Zoklamar ema apa metalton, but the Gittin for sure. And as Rashi says, the reason why I would have thought not metalton is because by metalton he really owns it because he yashed it. Zoklamar b'iter hapautos mekon mekachu memkar memkar b'metalton. Vakama, how old? Machli Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Yitzchak Berei. He showed him. I guess he must have showed him with his hand, right? Biramiza, right, to demonstrate our Mishnah. Kivar shish, kivar shad. 6, 7 years old. That would be the age. Rabbi Kahana Amar kivar shev, kivar tami. 7 or 8. The Mishnah Tana kivar tesha, kivar ezer, maybe 9 or 10. V'loy pligi. Why? Kol chad v'chad lefi churfei. What does that mean? How would you touch kol chad v'chad lefi churfei? I want to see a chayim if I touch that. Oh, so there's 2 pshatim in the Rishonim. The Pashim pshat is every child in that age area. You look at how sharp the child is. But what Chaim is saying, which some Rishonim learn, is each of these 3 opinions are because it's because Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Yehuda, he became mature already. Kavar shish, kavar shev. Rabbi Kahana, he matured a little later. And the Brisa, whoever wrote the Brisa, matured a little later. So each one's opinion is based on they themselves, how old they were when they were able to make those decisions. Yeah. The time of my why is it that the Chachamim say that their transaction should work? It's because they need to survive, right? They need to buy and sell things. Otherwise, how are they going to survive? This must be speaking, of course, where there's no apotropos. So Dr. Rashi, Vina, if their sales wouldn't be worth anything, no one would buy or sell from them, and they wouldn't even be able to buy food. He told the Maltacha, and this is talking about Hoisha Melech, Yehu Melech. What he wanted to do is the king before him allowed Avodah Zarah to succeed. He didn't want Avodah Zarah to succeed, but he wanted to be able to weed out all of the Kayhanim that were doing Avodah Zarah. So what he did was he played as if he was pro Avodah Zarah, and he said, I want all the Kayhanim of Avodah Zarah to come because I want to give him a special begodim. And this is how he was able to weed them all out. I want to make a special uniform to honor all of the Oivdei Baal. I don't know. Okay. So Zok to Gemara, my Maltacha. What is this beged called Maltacha? Rashi says it was a very fine wool that when you rub it in between your fingers, it spins into a thread. I believe that's a Rashi. That's how I understood Rashi. And it's flax. When you spin it and you roll it amongst your fingers, it starts to spin into a thread. So this person sent Rebbe. What did he send? Sivni, v'choimis, salsala, umalmala. These 4 minim, these 4 fabrics. So let's see what they are. Sivni v'choimis, these two minim that were sent him, kamguza upalgad abguza. They were such fine fabric that even though they were a fabric that the size of a full beged, enough to cover your whole body, it was such a fine fabric that you were able to actually fold it up into the size of a walnut and a half. It reminds me of those rain bonnets that you get in the little envelopes that you open them all up. They could be like a full beged, but it was a very fine fabric that was able to be folded very small. And salsala umalmala is kipistaka upalgi the pistaka. Pistaka is galant. It's some type of a food, some type of plant. Acorns. Okay, take an acorn. Okay, gewaltig. That's a little bit smaller. You can. Zok to Gemara, my melmala davar hanimla v'nimtach, and that's really all that we were trying to illustrate from here is what that was. Uta usan ad kama. and a normal person who's ripped off, there's rules of I know, right? Up to if it's less than the sixth, they have no claim. If it's a sixth exactly, the mekach is kayim, but the person has to refund the difference. And if it's more than the sixth, the mekach is bottled. How about with the peutos? With the usta at kama, at shtus kigadol, just like an adult up to a sixth. Boy abai, but not say my. Why is it that we let his mechira be good? Because otherwise he won't be able to survive because he can't buy or sell things. How about matana? Will we honor his matana as well? Rav Yemer Amar ein matanos in matana. My Baravashi Amar matanos in matana. Avchua v'shadrua lekamei de Rav Mordechai. So very interesting. What they did was either it was a mistake or there are those who learned it was on purpose. Is that when they sent the Shiloh to Rav Mordechai, they purposely switched what Rav Yemer said and what Mar Baravashi said. And the reason why they did that is they knew that Rav Mordechai was a Talmud of Mar Baravashi. So they thought that by default, even if he really didn't hold that way, he would pass like Mar Baravashi, that matanos and matana. So therefore they flipped it around and they told it that Mar Baravashi said, Ein matanos and matana, to see if he would agree to his Rabbi or if he really holds the other way around. Amr lei, so he responded, and Mordechai responded, Zilu Amru lebar Mar, go tell Mar Baravashi, Lav Hachi, who, or the son of Mar Baravashi, Lav Hachi Ava Uvda. That's not what happened. I was right there, and I can tell you, I remember with such detail what the psak was. Because ki have a koi Mar, when Mar Baravashi was chad kare, he had 1 foot on the ground, the chad kare adarga. So he was on his way up the stairs into the Besmedrash, and I know precisely the position that his body was in. That's how clear I am in remembering what occurred. And we asked him, did the matana putas work? So you're wrong when you quote Mar Baravashi as saying in matanas matana. So now they know for sure what Reb Mordechai held inside, and he wasn't just being mevatel his das to Mar Baravashi. Achas matnas chivmera, v'achas matnas bari, achas matnas meruba, v'achas matana muates. Either way, it's going to work. The Baltic. Zog to Gemara weiter. I'm sorry? Where did it say Vakotin? No, we're talking about putas. That was the whole riot. Isn't it what the whole riot is? Yeah. Is referring even to a coffin. Right. We have a whole list of items that the Rabbanan paskin something because of Darkei Shalom. Number 1 is Koyin Koyre Rishon, V'achar of Levi, V'achar of Yisrael, Mepnei Darkei Shalom. It's so that there shouldn't be a fight in the Bishmedish. Since there shouldn't be a fight, who gets the first aliyah, who gets the second aliyah, Tekinu l'Rabbanan Hai Sidra. The chivin that the content of Rabbanani, Su loy matzinin l'shnuye u'lemember anok renumeration. Now nobody can push themselves in because there's a set order. That was the first Darkei Shalom. The second was ma'arvin b'vayis yoshim b'nei Darkei Shalom. Let's say every week they would put the Erev Chatzeris in one person's house. That's where it stays. You don't switch it around. Also, because of Darkei Shalom, there shouldn't be a fight where the Erev Chatzeris should be. The Gemara is going to discuss that later, not today. Today we're just going to discuss the aliyahs first. Bar show karav la'ama. What happens if you have a brook of water that's designed to irrigate all of the fields in the neighborhood? But the way it would work is, as everything, water flows downhill. So people would have at the edges of their field cisterns, boilers of water that the Amma would fill up, and in case there was no rain, they at least had a reservoir of water. So who gets to fill up their reservoir first? So the halach is barshu karv la'ama mismal risha mipnei Darkei Shalom. The first person has a right to divert the water until his bar is full. Then the guy below him, then the guy below him. Mitzuda is chayav v'oifos v'dogim. What if you set up a trap, a net, and there's chayis and oifos and dogim in your net? Who keeps them? Do they actually belong to the trapper or not? Maybe you weren't cutting them yet. Yesh bod mishum gezel mipnei Darkei Shalom. So Mishum Ikra didn't. You don't own it yet, just because it's in your net. But al Darkei Shalom, we don't want people fighting. How dare you take something out of my net? If Yosy Gezel Gomer, it's Gezel Gomer, and we'll see it's also Gezel Gomer midivreim. It's gezel midrabanan. Okay. Well, see the Gemara. I don't know. So clearly here we're talking about a net that midaraisa wouldn't be kaidin. Right. Okay. Yeah. That's right. That's right. Rabbi Yosy Omer gezel gomer. It's gezel gomer, but against midivreim because, like we said, this is a case where there's not a key deraisa. Only a menachem b'roif shazayis. You have an oni, he's going to get oil, he's getting shikha, he's going to, on top of a tree, he's picking some pears. And as he's picking pears, some pears fall down. The halach is masha tachtov gezel b'teidak shalom. Even though he wasn't cutting it, but he's going to say, I cut this down, how dare you take? Rabbi Yosy Omer gezel gomer. Rabbi Yosy Omer gezel gomer, again, it's midivreim. Ein memachin biad aniyeh oivdik echavim v'lekra tzich peya b'teidak shalom. If a goyish oni comes and he wants to take lekra tzich peya, you cannot be moicha because of Dr. Shalom. Dr. the Mishnah. How do we know? Dr. Gemara, that Goyhanim go for it? Amar Rav Masna the Amar Kra. So this is a little bit funny. We said it's Dr. Shalom. Why are we looking for psukim? So that's something that we're going to have to get an answer to. Minanamili, we'll see. Amar Rav Masna the Amar Kra. Vayichtav Moshe es a Torah azois. Vayitna el Kayhanim b'nei Levi. Correct Gemara. Oto anoah lo yadana the Kayhanim b'nei Levi ninu. Don't we know that the Kayhanim are b'nei Levi? Why does the Torah have to say that the Kayhanim are b'nei Levi? Elo to teach us the order. Kohen bereisha v'hader Levi. Rabbi Yitzchak nafcha amar mehalcha. It says v'nikshu Kayhanim b'nei Levi. Again, Oto anan lo yadina the Kayhanim b'nei Levi ninu. Elo Kohen bereisha v'hader Levi. Rabbi Ashi amar mehalcha. B'nei Amram Aaron u'Moshe. The Yivdal Aaron Lakdishai Kodesh Kodeshim. So you see that Aaron, a Kohen, was raised above the Levi. Which is what Chaim was referring to. There are those who know that the din daraisa v'kidashtoi. L'chol davar shebekdusha. Hanu devei Rabbi Shmuel v'kidashtoi l'chol davar shebekdusha l'ftayach rishon. L'ftayach rishon Rashi says l'chol davar kavod bein b'Torah bein b'yeshiva hu yidaber b'rosh. We don't fear it like that. You never find that a Kohen speaks, if you're Mechabed speakers, you never find that the Kohen speaks first. By Elias you find it, but you don't necessarily find that by a speaker. You don't ever find that the speaker who's a Kohen gets to speak first. Yeah, so that's the good. You say very good. Okay, Luvarach Rishon, Bisuda, so he makes the first bracha, or he benches. Velito Mana Yafa Rishon. So Rashi says in Balachlik in Yisrael b'chol davar. So this is very interesting. The machlokes is Rishonim here. Rashi in Balachlik in Yisrael b'chol davar. Let's say I'm a partner, according to a partner with Yisrael, and he has to split up. The halach is la'achash yischalku b'shava. First they create two equal pieces, and then who gets to pick? Oimer loy beror v'toy leishitivza. The kohen gets to pick first. So, what do you mean? I hear. Okay, very good. So look what Tosha says. Tosha argues. Tosha says kagoyin b'maiser ani oy b'tzedaka imu ani. If the kohen's an ani oy b'chaver ma'masud b'suda, or if sing by suda, he'll take the first piece. He gets to take first. He'll be served first. Avol b'midi the shutvis loy, not by shutvis. Damrina on the perikavakum shenhagu the anoishin eino b'chelik yafa eino royis min bracha loylam. If we have to split, the kohen does not necessarily get first pick. He only gets first pick in these other things, not in a monetary transaction where two shutvim are splitting whatever they have. I don't understand. The Mishnah says the reason why the kohen goes first is you just brought 4 psukim, not even 4 psukim. Deiraisa. Omer deiraisa. Yes, about it deiraisa. But why did the Torah make such a rule? Frank Gemara, what are you talking about? Every mitzvah in the Torah is to create shalom. So you see, everything is darkei shalom. Misa yafa, right? We use it when we discuss the misa is based in. There are those who explain. I think the Meshachim uses to explain why there's no mitzvah puravu on the woman because it's painful. So the whole Torah is based on the chayda chanoim chol shalom. Amar Abaye, I'll tell you what the darkei shalom. What does the Mishnah mean extra when the Mishnah says that the kohen gets the aliyah first with the darkei shalom? L'chedamar, the Tanya. Shnayim amtinin zelo zebekayir. What if 2 people are eating together and one friend had to get up to go away? the person there has to wait for his friend to return. But shloish, if there's three together and one person leaves, ein mamtinin, they don't have to wait for him. Habaytzeya. So we'll get to the punchline soon. Habaytzeya, who pushes the person who made brachas hamoitzi, he gets to use the dips first. So you're sitting Friday night at a meal and you cut the challah. Who gets to take the olive dip first? Who gets to take the baba ganoush first? The person who made the bracha on the bread first. However, what if you have your rabbi sitting by your table? So you make moitzi. You don't have to dip first. You can tell the rabbi, no, you take first. You can be moichel on your cup. Let's finish. So B'ftei Dakashon that the Mishnah is talking about is normally you could be moichel on your covet, but that's only in your private sitting at home. In the Bismedish, when it comes to Aliyas, you cannot be moichel on the covet. Even if the kohen is moichel, you can go first. He has to get the first aliyah. And this leads to a whole shaila. What if you need an extra aliyah? Could the kohen be moichel the aliyah? We project that the kohen leaves. But the question is, could you ask the kohen to leave? Or that those old, maybe if the kohen's moichel, he can even stay there. Because it seems from our Gemara that a kohen can't be moichel. Why? Because it's also lin suye. So Rashi says over here, Aval, le'inyan, likrosh b'toyer b'esek neses, ein kohen you cannot make any exceptions. Once the kohen is waiving his rights, so then everyone will say, then I get also. Why you give it to him? You have to follow what it says in the Torah. Why? So the Mishnah is saying we enforce it by the aliyas, and you cannot be moichel b'darkei shalom. Sorry, I don't see that this says it very. But we have to look up the halachas for him. But in general, you should always let a kohen go first. Amar Rav Masna. Rav Masna said, "Had amrit the basic knesses loy." That we said in the basic knesses. You cannot be moichel loy amar and el b'shabbosos v'yom tovim. That's only on Shabbos and Yom Tov the shchichi rabbim and they can get into a fight. But b'sheni v'chamishi, where kamat nobody comes to shul anyway, loy. There's not a hakpad. So let's stop for a second and let's look at Tosfos. And Tosfos says, "B'sheni v'chamishi loy," the fourth line. Omer Rabbeinu Tam Hanimil the two. That's only in those days. Rabbeinu Tam is saying in his days. Rabbeinu Tam was in the 1200s. That's only in the olden days, in the Gemara's time. The Bechoil have a treaty b'malachta, and people were busy working. They couldn't come to minyan. Nowadays, the people come to shul on Monday and Thursday like any other day, and therefore there's the same concern. So there's the same concern. Yeah. Zok to Gemara, Aini, is that so? Rav Huna Kari B'Kahani B'Shabbosos V'Yom Tovim. Rav Huna was not a kohen, and he would get kohen. He would get the first aliyah on Shabbos and Yom Tov. Zok to Gemara, Shani Rav Huna, who was so head and shoulders above everybody else, that Filu Rav Ami Rav Asi, who was the most choshev Kahanim of the generation, the Filu Rav Ami Rav Asi Kahani Chashivi, the Einei 1 second, make of Havakai. There's a stroll. I'm sorry. The Filu Rav Ami Rav Asi Kahani Chashivi Eretz Yisrael. They were the most choshev Kahanim of all of Eretz Yisrael. Make of Havakai Filei. They would be about to Rav Huna. Rav Huna was so head and shoulders above everybody else that they would know there wouldn't be a machlokes about who gets the aliyah if they were giving it to Rav Huna. Rav Huna was like way above there. Amar Abaye, the thing we learned. Ain't sham kohen. What if there's no kohen? Nisparda chavila. There's a shadow what nisparda chavila means. Barajos nisfzaka catcher, and therefore you don't give the Levi next. Now it's Rishon, Sheni, Shlishi, anybody goes, as we know. Nifzaka catcher, Ibar al-Levi is kvoidoi, b'shvil chavilosa and the friend. This whole bundle falls apart. Veina kara klal. The Levi doesn't get called at all. We're going to see Tosfos says could be the Levi could get a Leah. Rashi, you could only call Yisraelim. You can't even call a Levi. We do call sometimes Levi b'm kohen kohen, but Rashi you wouldn't get. There's no seder. So Rashi has two pshatim. Either you don't give a Levi at all, or you can give a Levi. He'll be like anybody else. We don't. But it's mashma from the second pshat in Rashi. Shein seidel davar lahaktim Levi liyisrael umisha yirtzei yaktim. it's mashma from the second Pshat of Rashi. You could call a Levi after. I don't think we do, right? Sometimes we'll call a Levi. V'yamar Abaye. There's a long Toshis about. There's a short Toshis about it as well. We could zip through Toshis. Despite the Chavila, Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Yehuda, the Farish, the Kara Levi b'makam haroyu loy. You still call the Levi in the right place. Okay, that's a different thing. Zok the more weiter. Zok the more weiter. V'amar Abaye Nakinan ain't sham Levi. What if there is no Levi? Kaira Kayin. So the Kayin gets a second Aliyah. Any dato. V'amar B'yochanan. Kayin acher Kayin lo yikra mepshum p'kamei shel rishon. If you call another Kayin, then it's going to make it look like the first Kayin was possible. Levi acher Levi lo yikra. We should become shneim. If two Levis are called in a row, then there's a chshad on both of them. We're going to have to see why, if there's two Levis in a row, it's a chshad on both of them. And if there's two Kahanim in a row, there's only a chshad on the first. We'll get to it in a second. When we say you give the coin instead of a Levi, it's the same coin. So if the same coin gets two Alis in a row, no one's going to think that he's not a good coin. The Amri Chad Minay Olav Levi, who will say one of them is not a Levi. Amri Chad Minay Olav Koinu. So why does this dafka become the Rishon? Maybe to become the Sheni. Maybe Shad is we know the second coin is not a good coin, and that's why we gave him the second Aliyah. How does it prove that the first coin wasn't a good coin? It's more very, very simple. To go into Muchzak Lon, Bahavua, the high Sheni, the Koinu. What if we know for sure that the coin, the second coin that we called, we know for sure he's a kosher coin. So if we know for sure he's a kosher coin, then it's only a Pkam Derisha, and it must be that the first coin wasn't a good coin. So for Gemara, Hachanami, the Muchzak Lon, Bahavua, the high Sheni, the Levihu. So if that's the case, we have to find the same case whereby the coin is only a chshad of a rishon, and by Levi the chshad of both. If it's the case where we know that the second coin was muchak to be a good coin, and that's why it makes the first coin look bad, so why did you say something with the Levi? If you know for sure the second Levi was a good Levi, maybe you should have that the first Levi was not a good Levi. Ella Amri Mamzeres Oynesin and Naziv Upasla Lazare. Shad is we know for sure the father was a good coin, but we don't know that the father had a proper relation. We don't know about this coin himself that he's good. So therefore, that's why we say you don't necessarily know if the first Levi is bad or if the second Levi is bad, because it could be even though the father we know was a good Levi, maybe the son isn't. That's why it's a chash on both of them. So why did you say the same thing by a coin? Hachanami Amri Grusha Echalutza Nasiv Va'achla Lazare. Zaktamar, it doesn't make a difference. Saif, Levi, Mi Kahava. At the end of the day, a kohen becomes ois kohen if he gets ruined, but not a Levi. So let's see what the Gemara says. The Achle Mikadushas Kahuna by Reuka Yisrael, and he becomes like Yisrael. Umashani, the Gemara answers, Hoylu B'Levi Kara Lekap Gama. The fact that he got a Levi, even the fact that he got the aliyah of a Levi, it's not a pagam. He's talking about the chalalu, even if he's a halal, soif Levi mihava sheyikari b'makam Levi. What's happening over here? You're choshed that the kohen is a halal, right? You're choshed that the kohen's father married a grusha, and therefore he's not a kohen anymore. And that wouldn't explain why he got the second aliyah. He shouldn't get the second aliyah. He should get the third aliyah. So the fact that the kohen got a second aliyah clearly shows that it must be that the first coin was not a good coin. Because if the first coin is a good coin and the second coin is not a good coin, then he wouldn't get Levi, he would have to get Yisrael. The coin, since his father was a coin, ain't a halal. It must be that he's not a halal. Because if he was a halal, he wouldn't get the second aliyah as Levi, he would get the third aliyah as a Yisrael. Why not? A halal can get an aliyah. Yeah, sure. The ain't tam pagam elul rishon. Therefore, there's only a pagam to the rishon, but by the Levi, there's a chshad that it could be possible, and therefore you had two Leviim. But by the kohen, if the kohen was possible, he wouldn't get Levi, he would get Yisrael. From the fact he got a second aliyah, it only shows that there's a problem for the first Levi. Okay, so let's see the Gemara. Size of Levi Mikahabian, Ulaman, Ili Yoshvin, Hakachazi. So now the Gemara, I don't understand. What is the problem? What is the problem? Let's see who gets the third aliyah. If there's someone staying here the whole time, so then what's the problem? Why are you afraid you called another kohen because the first kohen wasn't good? Well, let's see how many aliyahs there are. On Shabbos, there's supposed to be 7 aliyahs. If they stop at 7, obviously the first coin was good. If not, they would have had to make an eighth aliyah because the first aliyah wasn't good. So what's the problem? Why is there chash? It's for people who go out early. They go out for Kiddush Club, and they don't see the Endalani, so they don't know how many aliyahs there are. Therefore, for those people alone, we're worried about those people as well. We want those people also not to be choshed that the coin is not a good coin. Okay, we'll stop here. I don't know what time Mincha is, but we'll be leaving an hour before Mincha.